Terror is a persistent, subtle tension that lives at the very center of your waking life. It is the feeling of being a distinct entity, a pilot located somewhere behind the ears and between the ears, peering out at a world that is alien to you. You feel that you are in here, inside the skin, and the universe is out there, pushing against you. This sensation of separation is the root of our anxiety, for if you are separate from the world, you are inevitably in conflict with it. You are a terrestrial fragment tossing in a chaotic ocean, forever guarding the fortress of the self. Now, let us explore the profound wisdom found not in adding more, but in letting go. The modern mind operates under a powerful hallucination, the belief that there is a listener distant from the sound, a seer distant from the scenery, and a thinker distant from the thought. We have been culturally and linguistically conditioned to believe that we are the nouns performing the verbs. We say, "What hear the bird," as if we're a mass static entity, a little homunculus sitting in the control room of the brain, receiving a signal called birdsong and deciding what to do with it. This structure creates a psychological distance, a gap between you and experience. In this gap, all our suffering, overthinking, and neurosis are born. Consider for a moment the ordinary world of your auditory experience. As you sit here, perhaps there is the hum of traffic in the distance, the whine of a fan, or the sound of this voice. But notice how you relate to these sounds. Is there not a subtle effort involved? A feeling you must reach out with your attention to capture the sound, or conversely, that you must defend yourself against unwanted noise. We treat sound as an intrusion or a commodity. We filter it, judge it, and categorize it. This is a pleasant sound, but one more. This is an annoying sound, but wake up and know it to stop. This constant editorial process requires a massive amount of psychic energy. It creates a state of perpetual vigilance. The listener is a guard at the gate, checking the credentials of every vibration that enters the ear. This phantom listener is vacant at the we call the ego. It is the sensation of being a center of gravity to which all experiences happen. We imagine this center to be solid, permanent, and critical. We feel that if this listener were to vanish, consciousness itself would snuff out like a candle in the wind. So we cling to it. We reinforce it with our internal chatter. We talk to ourselves out what we are hearing to prove that we are still there. We label the experience, that is a dog barking. Bina amal inago it, the listener feels in control. We categorizing it, the listener feels safe. But in doing so, we strip the reality of its immediacy. We are no longer hearing the raw, vibrant texture of the universe, we are hearing our own description of it. We are living in a menu, not eating the dinner. The tragedy of this ordinary world, this holistic state of being, is that it condemns us to isolation. If what I'm the listener, then what I'm forever cut off from the sound. What I'm an observer, a witness, standing on the bank of the river of life, watching the water flow but never getting wet. This separation breeds a deep, often unconscious loneliness. We crave connection, we crave intimacy with reality, but our very mechanism of engaging with reality, the egoic structure of me missing it, prevents that intimacy. We are like a person wearing thick gloves trying to feel the texture of silk. We know something is there, but the direct sensation is muffled by the layer of self we impose upon it. Furthermore, this phantom listener is the source of our mental noise. Because we believe we are the entity in control of attention, we are constantly trying to pay attention or trying to trade. We furrow our brows, we tense the jaw. We treat awareness as a muscular effort. When the mind wanders, the listener skulls itself, would need to focus better. This creates a civil war within the psyche. Who is the one wandering, and who is the one scolding? Are a tattoo of you. This internal conflict is the hallmark of the anxious mind. We are trapped in a loop of self-monitoring, where the listener is listening to itself listening, checking constantly to see if it is doing it right. This architectural flaw in our perception is not merely a philosophical misunderstanding, it is a somatic reality. You can feel it in your body. It manifests as a contraction, a tightness in the chest or the solar plexus. It is the physical bracing against the world. We feel that we must hold ourselves tighter, that if we let go of this tension, we will dissolve into nothingness. We treat the world of sound as if it were us projectiles, and the self is the shield. The louder the world jets, the more the self contracts. Into silence, the self becomes anxious because without a friction of opposition, it loses definition. It needs the push against the know that it exists. But let us look closer at his listener. If you were to turn your attention inward, searching for the one who hears, what would you find? We assume terror is a whole. We assume terror is a substantive entity behind the A's. Both is there. Or is there merely a bundle of memories, anticipations, and habitual tensions? When we search for the self, we find only thoughts about the self. We find images, words, and sensations, but we never find the one having them. It is a ghost. We are haunting our own lives, terrified that if we stop haunting, the house will fall down. The struggle, therefore, is not with the world but with this illusion of the center. We are exhausted not by the sounds of life but by the effort to maintain the entity that stands apart from them. We are trying to carry the weight of an identity that does not exist in the fluid reality of the present moment. We are trying to freeze the waterfall. We are trying to catch the wind in a box. And this effort, this desperate grasping for a solid place to stand, is what blocks us from the peace we so desperately seek. We want the silence of the mind, but the wanting is the noise. We want to be present, but the one trying to be present is the absence. We stand at the threshold of a paradox. To find the listener, we must lose the listener. To hear, we must stop trying to hear. We must dismantle the fortress we have built against the word, not by destroying it with force, for that would just be the listener finding a new way to fight, but by seeing, with total clarity, that there is no one inside the fortress to begin with. The struggle is a shadow boxing match, and the opponent is our own shadow. The journey we are about to undertake is not a journey of distance, but a journey of recognition. It is the discovery that the separation we feel is a trick of the light, a confusion of language, and a habit of tension. The ordinary world of the separate self is a dream, and the way out is to wake up to the sound of reality, ringing clearly, with no one there to hear it. If we look closely at this shadow boxing match, we begin to notice something peculiar about the arena in which it takes place. We have established that the listener feels like a distinct center, separated from the sound by a gap of space and time. You are here, the cajon is there. You are the subject, the winding the trees is the object. But this is where we must apply the microscope of deep inquiry. We must dare to ask, does this gap actually exist in your direct experience, or is it merely a concept you have superimposed over the reality? Let us conduct an investigation into the physics of intimacy. When you say you hear a sound over there, what is actually happening? Physically, scientifically, sound is not an object that stays at a distance. It is a vibration of air molecules, a rippling wave that travels through the environment until it physically touches you. It collides with the tympanic membrane, the eardrum. It is a tactile sensation. It is a form of touch. To hear a distant bird is, in reality, to be touched by the vibrating earth the bird has set in motion. The outside world is literally drumming on your insides. So, strictly speaking, even on a biological level, there is no distance. The event of the sound and the event of the hearing are a single occurrence of contact. Yet, psychologically, we maintain the divide. We persist in the illusion that we are standing back from the experience. This is the great trick of the mental delay. The self, the phantom listener, is actually a reaction to the present moment, occurring a split second after the event. A sound happens. Immediate. Spontaneous. Then, a fraction of a second later, a thought arises. Would hurt that? The ego claims copyright on an event that happened all by itself. We are constantly narrating our lives in the past tense, just microseconds behind the reality, saying, what am doing this, what am receiving this. But the receiving happened before than what even showed up. The I is an echo. And an echo cannot listen to the source. It is merely a residue of it. This brings us to the core of the struggle, the trial of our philosophical journey. We are addicted to the grammar of duality. Our language structure subject verb object hypnotizes us into splitting reality into pieces. Một hear the bell. Three distinct things, the mote, the herring, and the bell. But look at the experience itself will the filter of words. In the raw data of consciousness, can you find the line where the bell ends and the hearing begins? Can you find the precise boundary where the sound stops being sound and start being you? When you look for this boundary, you find it cannot be found. You cannot find the edge of the sound because the sound is the sensation of hearing. They are not two things interacting, they are one event manifesting. The bell and the ear are opposite ends of the same stick. If you take away the bell, there is no sound. If you take away the ear, there is no sound as we know it. They arise mutually. They imply each other. Just as you cannot have a front without a back, or a top without a bottom, you cannot have a listener without a listening. This is the zizzing insight that the mind tries to reject. The listener does not have the experience. The listener is the experience. When we grasp this, the solid ground of the ego begins to shake. We realize that the listener we thought we were, that little homunculus behind the eyes, entirely superfluous. The body hears. The brain processes. Awareness lights it up. No manager is required. The hearing happens just as the heart beats, just as the hair grows, just as the breath flows. Yous are not the hearing. Yous are not wake up in the morning and turn on the auditory cortex and adjust the zeals. It is effortless. It is a happening. But the struggle persists because we are terrified of this effortlessness. We equate effort with they had existence. We feel that if we are not tensing against the sound, if we are not labeling it and categorizing it, we will lose control. We fear that without the listener, the word will become a chaotic flood of noise. We fear that we will disappear. And in a sense, we are right. The we that we imagine ourselves to be the separate, controlling, isolated ego does disappear when we truly listen. Think of it like a whirlpool in a river. The whirlpool seems to be a distinct object. It has a shape, a location, a name. We can point to it and say, "There is the whirlpool." But if you take the whirlpool out of the river, what happens? You come up with a bucket of water. The whirlpool is not separate from the water. It is simply the water moving in a specific way. It is a pattern, not a piece. Similarly, you are not a static entity placed into you placed to listen to it. You are a pattern of the universe itself. You are the universe inging. You are the universe peopling, seeing, and listening. When you hear a melody, you are not a container into which the melody is poured. For that moment, you are the melody. The vibration of the music takes over your entire field of consciousness. If you are truly lost in the music, the self vanishes. There is only the rising and falling of notes. There is no one judging it, no one analyzing it, only the pure, seamless flow of sound. It is only when the music stops or when you get bored that the self rushes back into say, "That was a nice song." The self is the interruption of the flow. This realization that the knower and the non are one is the ancient insight of non-duality. It is the understanding that reality is not a collection of separate parts bumping into each other, but a unified field of seamless happenings. In this light, the anxiety of the ordinary world is revealed to be a case of mistaken identity. We have identified with the fence, not the field. We have identified with the cot, not the rope. But how do we stabilize this? The habit of separation is deep. We sit to meditate, and immediately the mind says, "What am distracted by that noise?" Notice the structure. Or victim am distracted by the noise aggressor. The war begins. We jita block the noise to find peace. But the mentors inside here is counterintuitive. Peace is not the absence of noise. Peace is the absence of the resistance to noise. If you treat the sound of a jacama as enemy, it becomes pain. If you treat it as a vibration of energy, simply a sensation occurring in consciousness, it loses its emotional sting. It is just energy sensing. The suffering comes not from the sound, but from the story the phantom listener tells about the sound. This shouldn't be happening. This is ruining my peace. Would need this to stop? The phantom listener is essentially a mechanism of rejection. It defines itself by what it excludes. What am this, not that. But true listening, what we might call great hearing, is inclusive. It allows everything in because it realized there breathes no in and out. There are no walls to the mind unless we build them with our resistance. Consider the silence. The phantom listener treats silence as a canvas upon which it is waiting for something to happen, or as a void it must fill with chatter. But when the listener dissolves, silence is not empty, it is full. It is the pregnant background out of which all sounds emerge and in which they dissolve. It is the acoustic space of consciousness itself. You are not the one hearing the silence, you are the silence. You are the open capacity in which the universe sings its song. To struggle against this is to struggle against your own nature. It is like a wave trying to separate itself from the ocean to get a better view of the weather. The wave is the waiter. You cannot get this insight by grabbing it, for who would be the grabber? You can only allow it by seeing the falsity of the grabber. The trial 10 is to sit in the midst of the noise, the traffic, the voice, the ringing in the ears, and stop pretending you are separate from it. It feels like a death. It feels like falling backwards off a cliff. The mind screams, hold on. Define this. Judge this. But the invitation is to keep falling. To let the sounds pass right through you, as if you were made of mist. To realize that the wind does not disturb the sky, it simply moves through it. In this deep analysis, we find that the listener is nothing more than attention, a habitual contraction around the eyes and ears. A squinting of the mind. When we stop squinting, when we relax that psychic muscle, the entity disappears. And the gap hat out there remains. Not a void. Not a blindness. But a vibrant, luminous presence. A hearing that hears itself. A knowing that knows itself. The gap closes. The bridge burns. And suddenly, you are not listening to the rain. There is just rain. And the train is you. So, how do we step out of the map and into territory? How do we dismantle this phantom listener, not as a mental gymnastic, but as a lived reality? We must move from analysis to experiment. We must undertake a practice of sensory subtraction to reveal the addition of the infinite. You can do this right now wherever you are. You do not need a cave in the Himalayas, you need only the soundscape of your immediate environment. Let us treat this moment as a laboratory. Begin by allowing your eyes to close, or simply soften your gaze so that visual distractions fade into the periphery. Let your attention settle entirely on the realm of hearing. At first, you will hear the usual inventory of nouns. You will hear a fan, a car, a voice, a footstep. This is the mind's labeling machine at work, frantic to categorize the data. Acknowledge this machine, but gently step back from it. Zonachito, stop the labels, just lose interest in them. Shift your interest from what is making the sound to the texture of the sound itself. Forget the cause, stay with the effect. Instead of a car, hear a rising and falling hum. Instead of a voice, hear a modulation of pitch and tone. Strip the word of its names. Return to the raw data. In this state, there are no objects, only vibrations. There is no good sound or bad sound, only the seamless tapestry of the acoustic present. Now, take to experiment deeper. Notice the geometry of your experience. Conventionally, you feel that you are a point in the center of a sphere, and sounds are coming at you from different directions. But investigate this. Keep your eyes closed. In the direct sensation of hearing, can you actually find the center? Can you find the here that is receiving the there? If you drop the mental image of your head, if you fork it for a moment, did you have a face or brain? Where is the sound happening? Is it happening inside a box? Or is it happening in a boundless, open space? You may discover a profound shift. The sound is not coming to you. It is emerging within you. The bird singing in the distance is not miles away. The sensation of its song is happening right here, in the immediacy of consciousness. The traffic, the wind, the breath, it is all arising in the same place, which is no place at all, but the open field of awareness. In this moment, surrender the effort to focus. We are told that concentration requires a narrowing of the mind, a spotlight. But true listening is not a spotlight, it is a floodlight. It is a panorama. Open your awareness to bottom 70 degrees. Let the sounds from behind you, above you, and below you all enter simultaneously. Do not grasp at any single thread, let the whole tapestry wash through. When you stop selecting, you stop separating. And when you stop separating, the separator, the ego, starves. Suddenly, the tension behind the ass relaxes. The listener dissolves, but to the listening. You are no longer the ghost in the machine, you are the music itself. This is the return with the victory. The victory is not over the world, but over the illusion of being apart from it. You have returned to the state of just hearing. Carrying this back into the ordinary world changes everything. When you walk down a busy street, you are no longer a tiny victim bombarded by noise. You are the space in which the city happens. The jackhammer, the siren, the louder, they are all movements of your own consciousness. They cannot hurt you because they are you. This shift grants you an unshakable immunity to anxiety. Anxiety thrives on the story of a vulnerable self that needs protection. But space needs no protection. Space cannot be cut by a knife, burned by fire, or disturbed by sound. Be identifying with the space of listening rather than the phantom listener. You find the stillness that exists right in the heart of the noise. You realize that silence is not something you have to go out and find. Silence is the background of every sound. It is the paper on which the notes are written. And because you are the background, you are always at peace, even when the foreground is chaotic. The practice, 10, is simple. Throw out or say, catch yourself trying to hear. Catch yourself contracting against a sound. And in that moment, simply drop the tension. Ask yourself, who is hearing this? And in the silent gap that follows, realize that no one is there. There is just the magnificent, unfolding symphony of the now, playing itself for itself as you. To conclude our journey, let the weight of the listener fall away completely. You do not need to hold the word together with your attention, it holds itself. Rest in this open, headless, boundless awareness. The struggle of separation was a dream. The reality of unity is the sound of the rain, the hum of the city, the beat of your heart.